Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of The Fishing Teacher, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to check out today's episode. And guys, today I want to talk about the downfall of the Whopper Plopper. About this lure used to be freaking awesome, but the bass are just getting off it more and more every year. And what I want to talk specifically about the Plopper here, but I want to get into the bigger picture of why this happens to lures. What is it that makes the bass get off a particular lure, and why is it that some lures sort of maintain their their productivity, decade after decade after decade? So we're going to get into that in today's video. And guys, if you do want one lure that is going to maintain your productivity, guys, please check out my new Blaukat Power Finesse Throwback jig. Cumberland Pro lures, I've been working with them the last year. We just came out with this last week. This is a finesse jig made out of frog hair rubber, hand-tied live frog hair rubber. 3 different sizes, 6 different colors. Great lure for fall time fishing. So I'll have the my Power Finesse jig link in the description of this video through my Tackle Warehouse link. And also, guys, while you're there and checking out the links, please check out my lake map breakdowns that I built for Fish the Moment, guys. If you're wanting to get some good fishing places on your favorite lake this fall, this is a great resource for it. I built these for Fish the Moment. Each map gives you 40 GPS waypoints you can download to your GPS unit. Tips and advice on how to fish those places, and you can duplicate them in different areas around the lake. So I'll have all those links in the description. Really appreciate that. Okay, we do a lot of the Whopper Plopper stuff on here because I'm fascinated by the Whopper Plopper. This thing, what happened, there was a handful of us in Missouri that knew about this thing a long time ago when it very first came out, and everybody kept it secret. And then there was one of the anglers won a big tournament down at Table Rock Lake a few years ago on it, talked about the Whopper Plopper, and then you couldn't go to Table Rock Lake for the next 6 months without everybody throwing a Whopper Plopper. And then it caught on around the country, everybody started throwing it. This is what happens when you have a really unique, crazy looking lure like the Whopper Plopper. It's like people look at it and say, oh my God, that thing's so crazy looking, I gotta try it. And as a result, literally everybody in the country has been throwing this thing heavily over the past 5 or 10 years. Probably 10 years now, I guess it's been. And what was once an unbelievable lure for bass catching has now been relegated to a very situational lure that does not work under a lot of conditions. Now, one of the things about this is, there's a lot of people that fish the Whopper Plopper here in Missouri on all of our lakes, especially like Table Rock and Lake of the Ozarks. And I've got a lot of buddies that are Whopper Plopper fanatics. I mean, they just live and die by the Whopper Plopper, and they've been doing nothing but complaining the last, year or two, just saying they're not on a Whopper Plopper. It's like they're getting off it. They're not biting it like they did. I didn't catch anything on it today. Why is this? And that's what I want to talk about in today's video pretty much. Now, here is the difference why one lure works for decades and stays productive and other lures don't. This is a prime example of it. Whopper Plopper, guys, telegraphs itself. If you've ever seen this thing in the water, it makes a very loud, unique sound. It goes blah, 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 blah. I can't do a good imitation of it, but it looks crazy coming through the water. It has a very unique sound to it. It's a large bait. You can't mistake it. And then if you take something like a jig that's a silent bait, just sort of bouncing and scooting along the bottom like that, it's literally a different universe. These two lure categories right here are literally in a different universe from each other in terms of the profile and their appeal to fish. So bass get conditioned to a bait that they can get conditioned to through some type of sight or sound very, very easily. So say, for example, if you have a lure like an Alabama rig or a buzzbait or a Whopper Plopper or a lipless crankbait that has a lot of loud rattles into it, those baits are very audible to the fish, and they're larger baits, and the profiles on them different, and the bass pick up and they clue in on that very quickly. But again, if you're using a silent bait, like a plastic worm or a jig or something like that, these baits don't telegraph themselves. There's no noise to them. The only noise that they put out is just maybe bouncing along the rocks and displacing a little bit of water. I mean, that's the only thing that telegraphs the bait, and that is why bass will make the mistake of hitting those quiet lures a lot more than they will the loud, baits that telegraph themselves. Okay, now given this, I think that's most people can understand that. That's a pretty easy concept to understand. But the question remains, when do you want to use baits like this? Because obviously the bass will still bite a Whopper Plopper under certain conditions. So you don't just want to quit fishing it completely. But what happens to a bait like the Whopper Plopper and other baits similar to that is that as time progresses and as more people fish them, they become what I call situational lures, where you have to have an exact set of conditions to line up perfectly for that bait to work. Now, a jig or a plastic worm, something like that, there's not a condition it won't work. Muddy, in between water, clear water, cloudy days, sunny days, windy days, snowing days, they'll bite it every day of the year. Where the Whopper Plopper, you may have only a couple weeks during the year that they're going to bite it good, once they've got conditioned to it. Now, let's say, for example, that when the Whopper Plopper first came out, and the bass had never seen a Whopper Plopper, never heard a Whopper Plopper, you might be able to catch bass on this thing anytime the water temperature is over 60 degrees, from April into November, a huge window there. But as this bait has become overused, and that's the way it is. This bait is overused. If, every bass in the lake and have seen a Whopper Plopper, that window shrinks down to where you have to have an exact specific set of circumstances for this to work. Now, here is the circumstances that a Whopper Plopper is going to work good. Number one, fall time of the year. Whopper Plopper is by far the best during the fall time of the year. It always has been, but now even more. Once you get the fall time of the year, you have a water clarity window and a water temperature window. And that water temperature window for the Whopper Plopper, for the most part, is going to be about 65 to 75 degrees. There's about a 10-degree window there, 65 to 75, maybe up to 80. So let's say 65 to 80 is a broad range there. And then you have to have the water visibility window sort of be in that really about 2 to 3.5 foot zone is going to be a perfect Whopper Plopper deal. So you got to have the right water temperature, you got to have the right water visibility, and then you got to have the right type of day. While they will bite a Whopper Plopper in about any condition sunlight wise, by far the best conditions are going to be a cloudy day where you got some wind. So this is the window that we've been reduced to now for the Whopper Plopper. You've got a day like September or October primarily, water temperature 65 to 80. You've got a cloudy day, you've got a windy day, you've got water visibility, like I said, 2 to 3.5 foot, all that stuff combined. And you've also got the right type of banks with the appropriate type of cover. Yeah, you're gonna go out and you're gonna catch some bass on a Whopper Plopper. But that window has got to come together almost perfectly before this bait has actually, is highly productive. And that's the same for any type of lure that telegraphs itself. It could be a Whopper Plopper, it could be a buzz bait, it could be any type of lure that puts out noise or a vibration that is just unique to itself and doesn't have any other one out there. So my recommendation here, guys, is this is what I'm going to recommend. Spend most of your time fishing baits like jigs and plastic worms. If you just concentrate on fishing baits like jigs and plastic worms, and maybe smaller type baits or baits that look really realistic, you're going to catch a lot more fish. And baits like the Whopper Plopper and buzz baits, stuff like that, you're probably going to spend a lot of time, or even glide baits, throwing them without catching any fish. But then again, you need to know what those windows are to, if you're on the lake and that stuff presents itself, baits like this can still be pretty productive. So anyway, guys, hope that makes some sense, and we'll check in later. See ya.